It's for AllSports Podcast.
Welcome to the AllSports Podcast with me, Matt, and today, Joel. How are you, mate?
Hey Matt, all good, thanks mate. How are you?
Not bad at all, thank you. And James, how are you?
Yeah, all okay, thank you, mate.
And full attendance this week with Femi back. How are you, mate?
All good, mate. All good. Good to be back.
Great to have you.
Not going to be able to get a word in edgeways this week, blimey.
Maybe not. As he's dressed for the weather in Miami, we might as well start in Miami at the Formula One. And Oscar Piastri, the headline, Oscar Piastri has extended his lead at the top of the standings, of the driver's standings, as we expected, and McLaren have also stretched their lead. The story of the weekend was probably a little bit broader and more complex than that, but this is the way that I do see it playing out, at least until the summer break.
Yeah, across obviously the two races, the sprint and the race, you could see that McLaren was just a lot quicker than everybody else, wasn't as harsh on its tyres. The sprint being a sort of repeat of last year's race, with Norris having a huge benefit from a safety car out of nowhere and picking up a win. And then in the race, he got himself into a first lap scuffle with Verstappen, as he so often does, and then fell back 4 or 5 places, had to fight back through, had another fight with Verstappen, and by that point, he had just sort of checked out from the race and showed that consistent speed that we've seen over the first few races.
Little shout out to Kimi Antonelli for becoming now there's probably an asterisk against this, the youngest ever pole sitter, because it was for the sprint race. Does that count? Do we still count it?
Probably not historically pole sitting for a sprint, but that was the first time he'd ever raced on that track. Like, he'd never done any junior categories around there. So Friday morning was the first time he'd driven a car around that track. So it's pretty impressive to then go and put on a pole against the 19 other quickest drivers in the world. So yeah, damn impressive at 17 years old.
That's insane, given how fast we know the McLaren is, and the Red Bull's not fast. However, Verstappen just can get everything out
He
of
makes
it.
it fast.
The Ferrari showed glimpses through the weekend, but really they're the best of the rest in terms of the mid-table. McLaren have got this slam dunked already this season, surely.
Yeah, they're going to run away with it unless... The problem is the incentive to develop the cars isn't really there.
Yeah.
With new regulations next year and the budget caps coming in. So I think it would be really hard to see a world in which someone catches McLaren that quickly. The caveat to that is obviously there's this performance clause in Verstappen's contract that's rumoured that if he falls out of a certain criteria, he can walk for a nominal fee compared to his huge release clause. So Red Bull will have to develop a little bit, otherwise they will fall outside of that clause. But yeah, I think we're expecting to see far more from Ferrari than we have. Mercedes are probably surprised a little bit on pace, and McLaren are about where we expect them to be. Like, they had the best car towards the end of last year, and they have far the best car now.
I made a joke about Ferrari wearing that ridiculous blue and white fire suit, that they were dressing like Williams, but performing worse than them. They wish they could perform like Williams. How good are Albon and Sainz?
Yeah, probably the most competitive pairing, as in as close to each other as they can be, and yet they're still top drivers. The weird thing was that a lot of the narrative around Williams this year was that they would just be waiting for next year and you wouldn't really expect much from them. I think they got more points this weekend or close to it than they had the entire of last season. Maybe that would have been before Albon's disqualification, but yeah, they are looking quicker than Ferrari, which is pretty impressive for a team that was dead last 2 years ago. But yeah, I think their big sort of moment in their team's next 5-10 years will be next season, if they can get themselves beyond that midfield pack and challenging for podiums, and not necessarily wins, because these teams are so far ahead of them, but they have great people in there, they've got great drivers, they've got great team principle, and they're a team that are very easy to root for.
Yeah, they definitely are. It's just the leaderboard from the weekend, the actual race results. Piastri, Norris, Russell, Max Verstappen is pretty much how we're calling it for the foreseeable future, right? George Russell's just mopping up those.
Big gap there, isn't there, between second and
Yeah,
third.
you're right. It's the race time. If you look at the race time, you just see the gap between McLaren and the rest, and it's just a midfield scramble. But it was an overtaking track, and there was a lot of overtaking happening, which was good and exciting. We've not seen that necessarily this season. It's been a bit processional. I'm not sure if the new regs have a narrower car. Do you know, James? But these massive wide beasts are incredibly hard to overtake, except for this weekend. That was a little bit more racy.
Yeah, I think this weekend we saw how Piastri is going to drive going forward. Like he knows what he has to do in this current rule set to get past people. He outfoxed Verstappen, which isn't something you've seen from Norris, like going one-to-one with him. And I thought it was impressive how, like, he's not an old guy, Piastri. He was really willing to put his foot in and go, no, you're not going to bully me off this track. I'm quicker than you. I've got a quicker car, and I'm going to find my way past. We've seen Leclerc, Hamilton, Norris getting these fights with them over the last few seasons, and they almost get out-aggressed. Like they think, oh, you're going to ram my car off. I can't go around here. I was really, really impressed by Piastri this weekend.
Me too. Someone less impressive, and I don't think that he's impressed his team either, is Jack Doohan. He finished last in the race. Well, he did not finish because he got bumped off in the first lap. First corner incidents, and Alpine look like they've had enough, and they've got a brilliant replacement ready to come in Franco Colapinto, who impressed us incredibly in his first season last year. I don't think it was even his rookie season last year, was it? He didn't start the season, did he?
No, he was a rookie, but he joined halfway through. But yeah, the writing's been on the wall for Jack Doohan before the season even started. Like to go and pay that amount of money for a reserve driver was always like, oh God, like they're not giving this kid much of a chance. He hasn't been great, but that team in general hasn't been that good. Like Gasly is usually there or thereabouts the midfield. He's always a good qualifier, and he's been quite far back so far. So to judge him in a car that's not doing great seems harsh, but everyone knows how rawly quick Colapinto is, and they're seeing themselves fall down the constructors' rankings, which means so much to these teams from a money perspective. They're probably thinking, we've got this kid sat in reserve, why are we not using him? So they must be falling to that pressure rather than going, we don't think Jack Doohan's any good. They just don't have time for him to develop.
Any other stories from the weekend before we bounce on into another sport?
Versus Leclerc and the Ferrari. I don't know if you saw any of the comms.
What is happening with Hamilton though? Like he hasn't. The season he's been really disappointing. Is it him or is it more the car? Or is it the team? What is it?
I'd say it's a bit of both. That car is not quick. Like he's been quite close to Leclerc where they've been comparable on like similar strategies. Like he's doing a good job from that perspective. Even when you consider like he's driven a Mercedes engine for 10, 15 years. So this change is quite a big one for him. So yeah, that car's not good, but he's also lacking qualifying pace. I think the only time he's looked really strong was when he led in the sprint. And he sort of went into Lewis Hamilton mode, and he's got no dirty air, and he's not having to overtake cars. He can still win from that point. But yeah, I think Ferrari in general have been pretty disappointed.
And maybe in the sprint it was an incredibly light car because it's obviously fueled for much, much less. But yeah, Leclerc's still out qualifying him predominantly, and neither of the drivers are happy with the race engineers and the strategy that they're putting out. But from this weekend, it was specifically Lewis wasn't happy because they were dithering about swapping places. Lewis closed the gap to Leclerc. I can't remember who Leclerc was behind. Pardon? Albon, but he wasn't making any ground. So Hamilton was obviously asking the team to let him through because he'd showed that he had the pace versus Leclerc, and they did it around for 3, 4, 5 laps, and then in the end switched them. But then Hamilton wasn't able to make much of an impact either, but he was very vocal on the team radio about that and has been publicly since as well. It's not a bad thing. He's wanting the team to do better. He wants to do better. And that's the right mentality to have. It's not just blind frustration. It's actually with solutions in mind as well.
What's he frustrated about? The hesitation?
Yeah, so basically they were on 2 different strategies, and Hamilton was on fresh medium, so he should have been quicker, and he'd caught up to Leclerc pretty much immediately after he'd pitted. So the smart thing would have been swap the cars, let Hamilton go after Albon with the clean air, with the fresh tyres, but they probably spent like 3 or 4 laps like racing, and Hamilton essentially destroyed his tyres in that period and overheated his car. So then after that, they swapped back
I was going to say, how did it end up behind him?
Yeah, so that they swapped the cars. Then Hamilton went after Albon, couldn't really get near him because he'd burnt out his tyres. Then they swapped back, and then Leclerc couldn't go anywhere because he'd burnt up his tyres behind Hamilton. So they just left themselves in this terrible middle ground where no one got the best of their tyres and they went nowhere. I was like, what is this going on? I saw a tweet that said Ferrari would be better if they just gave Leclerc and Hamilton a mic to each other and decided what to do.
Yeah.
Take all the strategies out because they ain't got a clue what's going on.
Is there any similar strategy questions around Piastri and Norris, or not really?
It's from a different perspective because we know they're committed to this no number one driver strategy. So whoever starts ahead basically gets the preference. So it's different in that regard. In Ferrari, Leclerc's probably technically the number one driver because he's faster and has been the number one driver versus his teammates for the last few years. It's very different issues. The strategy issues at Ferrari have tripped them up in races, and they've struggled over the last probably 5 or 6 years now that they've just fumbled around with their strategy for races. And McLaren's is very clean. They know what they're doing and they stick to it. And the leadership of the strategy and also the team principal. Well, he's not team principal, is he, Zach Brown? He's the CEO, but he's very active and involved. They're very firm with the drivers that they know what they want them to do and make them submit to that team play.
They are, but I think they've got very lucky this year that they've not actually really had a ding dong between the two drivers. They've not been super close for one reason or another. Either Verstappen's there, or someone's had a bad qualifying, or someone spins. Like we've not had
or Piastri's just too fast for Norris.
Yeah. We've not really had a Rosberg-Hamilton moment yet, which I think will come because these guys know they're the only two people realistically that's going to win this championship. So this whole friendly 2 number 1 drivers is going to go out pretty quickly.
Only lasts so long, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, for the last 10 years, it's only been Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen that have been world champions. So
who's going to be next?
Who's next up?
Piastri.
It feels so nailed on for me. Lando has to get rid of these mistakes and get a bit of confidence back. His confidence seems a little bit knocked, is the way that I see it.
I think if you're comparing the two, he's quicker, but he's not as consistent, and that's going to be his downfall. I just feel like some of the situations he's put himself in, apart from Australia, Piastri has avoided. And you can't have blowouts really if you're going to win a world title. If you look at the race wins, Piastri has already won 4 this season. Is that right? That sounds about right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 4.
So
5 podiums, 4 wins.
So this is sort of a start that you need, that Norris needed to be a bit more comfortable. But now he's not only chasing down Verstappen, who he's had problems with for 2 years. He's now chasing down a guy who's quick in the same car as him. So yeah, we'll see. Have we got a break now until we come back?
I thought you were going to say before we start talking about football.
I was going to say, we've only just started, man.
Take
a cup of tea, lads.
Take a 2-minute break. Let me have a look.
Inter scored.
Yeah, it's 1-0, yeah.
I just had a look at how high their line is. Barcelona are playing with absolute fire.
We got Imola on the 16th. So 1 week gap.
Well, yeah, 1 week gap. Then we've got 3 on the spin, the European spin. So yeah, 1 week gap, and then we've got Imola, and then we are off to Monte Carlo, and that triple header of fixtures in May culminates at the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona. Not a great culmination, because that being a test track, it's pretty processional too.
I mean, Imola will be good, Monaco can be carnage, and then Spain will be a bit of a procession.
Pray for rain.
Pray for rain, yeah, absolutely.